this tofu steak that we're going to do, you can pair it with your favorite barbecue sauce. All right, the other one is the chicken dish. Now I'm going to do a 100% vegetarian option for those who are vegetarian to follow along with, using the same marinade for those veggies. If you're going to do the chicken dish, I'm going to demo one with the skin on and one with the skin off, so that way you can see the difference. So bone-in chicken thigh is going to be have more dark meat. It's going to have a little bit more fat in it, and actually that's what we want, because as it cooks, that fat is going to keep the veggies that are around it on the baking sheet from charring too much. Okay, so let's talk about that. If you like char, this is the dish for you. If you don't want your veggies to be too charred, what you're going to need is a sheet of aluminum foil, okay, that you're going to put over the chicken and the veggies midway through. So that way it still cooks, but you have that layer to prevent the charring. Now, I'm someone who likes char, so it's up to you. All right, so I'm going to start off with first part of the tofu dish, okay, and then we'll get the chicken in the oven, get it going, and while that chicken and veggies are cooking in the oven, we're going to do the tofu steak. So that way we maximize our time usage. All right, for tofu, you can use any brand of extra firm to firm tofu, right? We want something that's firm. We don't want to go with the soft stuff because we're going for that texture, right? And then when we bread it, we want it to be able to hold together, so that way we can flip it easily. So you're going to go for extra firm or firm tofu. You will take a knife and you will cut around the edges, okay? And there's going to be a lot of water. You want to drain that water out, and then you're going to pull the tofu out. It's going to be usually in 2 big blocks, and you want to wash that. Okay, you wash it a few times, you know, just hold it in your hand, wash it, because you never know. Sometimes there's just this like just debris and this kind of like film that's on it. That's normal. It's nothing to be worried about. So you want to wash that off. Then you're going to cut the tofu, and let me show you what this looks like. 1 block of tofu is going to be about this thick, okay? That's 1 block of tofu. And then you're going to cut it lengthwise into about 3/4 of an inch to an inch thick. You can go even thinner than that, okay? So the thinner it is, the more flavor it's going to be able to absorb and the better cooked it is. But we don't want to go too thin, otherwise you just have like a wafer. Okay, so I used 1 block of tofu, and I've already pre-cut it because I went ahead and pressed these. Let's talk about that. Okay, I'm going to switch cameras real fast to a different angle, so that way you can see the kitchen counter better. Just 1 second. Okay, so what I did is I got some paper towels. So I have a plate, a few paper towels on the plate. Then you're going to put your cut tofu on. So this is in preparation for this dish. All right, then you would put another layer of paper towels over that, put another plate on top of the tofu, and then you want to put some heavy object on top of that plate. And this is going to press out a lot of that moisture, that liquid that's been accumulated in the tofu. And we want to get as much of that out as possible, because that's going to make it taste better, and it's going to have a better texture when we bread it and cook it on the stove. All right, so ideally you want to do this for anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour in advance. But if you didn't do that today and you're following along, you're still going to have a really good tofu steak. Don't worry, it's not the end of the world. It's just going to be, the texture is going to be that much better, and the flavor will be that much better if you press it. All right, so I've already pressed these. So for the tofu, so I'm going to move that aside. And I'm just going to let them air out a little bit, okay? And the texture is going to be different. So it is drier, and it's lost a lot of that squishiness. It's more like what you would expect for something that you could put on a barbecue grill. All right. So we're going to come back to that. We're going to go on to the veggies. So I'm going to do one tray that has 100% veggies, so the vegetarian option, and then I'm going to do the chicken with the veggies on the second tray. Now, if you have family members, if you're in a household where there's people who have different eating preferences, so you would definitely want to do your vegetarian options first, and you would want to have that on the top rack because we don't want to have any of those chicken juices getting onto the vegetarian meal, right? Your vegetarians or vegans in your family would be very, very, very unhappy with that. All right, so I'm putting in a bowl. So I'm deviating from the recipe. I already have some spring onions and I have some chopped carrots. Okay, we have a chopped, already pre-chopped butternut squash, and I'm going to show you how to cut that here in a second. And then I have Brussels sprouts. Now, the Brussels sprouts that you can see in the store, sometimes they're already cut in half. So they're going to look something like this when you come find them in the store. I want you to cut them in half so that way they cook in the center and you're going to get that much more flavor. Okay, so I'm going to add those in now. And we're going to come back to that. Let's talk about how to cut the squash, okay? So the idea is we're going to put a marinade on this, and then we're going to toss it around and make sure that it's coated really, really well, and then we're going to put it on a sheet to bake, okay? Your oven should be heating up to 425 degrees right now. All right. Let's do the squash cutting demo. So there you can see the counter. And let's get our butternut squash. Okay, I've been chopping garlic. Can everyone see me okay? Is that too far? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so butternut squashes that you'll find in the store, you're gonna have varying sizes. The bigger ones are fine, but it's gonna be harder to cut. So I'd recommend like making a smaller to medium one and getting more multiple ones. It's gonna be a little bit tender. So I did wash that. I'm leaving the sticker on because it's gonna be shaved off here in a moment. All right, so there's this big woody stem and you wanna chop that off first, okay? You want a sharp knife. So if you haven't sharpened your knives in a while, you want to do that ahead of time. Otherwise, you're going to be expending a lot of energy doing this. So I cut the tops off. Okay, you're going to cut the bottom off as well. Okay, so bottom's cut, and then we're going to cut it right in the center. Now, the bigger ones are going to be a little bit harder to cut, so I recommend this medium-sized one. You can still do the bigger ones. You're just going to have to put in a little bit more effort. All right, so we've cut it in half, and now you can see where the seed pocket is. Okay, we're going to be using all of this area here to cook, but we want to de-seed it. So you're going to take a spoon, and you're just going to shell out those seeds. And you want to get as much of that stringy, fibrous material out. Now you can cook these seeds. You can wash the seeds and cook them kind of like pumpkin seeds, and you can use them on a salad. Those seeds are very, very, very nutritious. So they're high in like selenium, and there's a few other, I think magnesium. So they're very nutritious. And you know, back in the day, people would be, shocked if you toss these because they're so rich in nutrients and they're flavorful. So you could add some olive oil to them, bake them. After you rinse them off, they'll be delicious. So I'm not going to do that for this demo though. All right, so I'm moving that other side off of the cutting board. So this is what it looks like now. And then now we want to trim off all the sides of the skin, okay? You can use a knife or you can use a peeler. I'm going to use a knife today. So I'm going to cut it actually in the middle. That way I have a little bit easier area to work with. And I'm just going to cut off the sides. The butternut squash is going to have a almost subtle pumpkin smell. Now think about the nutrients that you're going to get from this butternut squash. So oranges are generally nutrient dense type foods, that orange color. Okay, and I think you just, okay. So you're going to cut off the skins, and don't worry if you cut off a little bit of meat with that. I'm talking about the squash. meat, it's going to be all right. You're probably going to have more squash than you know what to do with right now. So use as much as you need, but save this. Okay, whatever's left over, this can last in the fridge for a long time. You can freeze it. You can, take these out, pop them in the oven, drizzle some olive oil on it. You got a really nice addition. And it's a very healthy carbohydrate. When I say healthy, it's very high in fiber and it's very low on that glycemic index. So if you're diabetic, squash is going to be a really great option for you in maintaining healthy blood sugar. All right, so you're going to cut that squash into cubes or chunks, just like that. And then you can add that to your bowl for marinade. So I've already did that. So I'm going to move these aside. Let's go back to our marinade. We want to get that in as quickly as possible so that way it's cooking. All right, so I have all my veggies. I'm going to do twice the amount of that marinade. Now, in the instructions, it just indicates to rub it on the chicken. And I'm like, no, if you're going through all this trouble, you want to have a lot of flavor, right? So why not make double the marinade and get that on your veggies? All right, if you're doing a 100% vegetarian option, okay, you're going to section off your veggies, and you're going to need to use twice the amount of olive oil. All right, otherwise you're going to have a really, really dry vegetarian dish. So you're going to need 2 tablespoons rather than 1 tablespoon. All right, so I have veggies that are prepped in a bowl, and I'm going to make the marinade next. Okay, pretty much we're just mixing everything together. So it's going to be 2 tablespoons to a 1/4 cup of honey. Now, if you are wanting to watch your sugar, just use 2 tablespoons, so 1/8 tablespoon, or sorry, 1/8 cup. Sorry, someone's wanting to add. Let me make sure I can. Okay, hello. All right, so this honey though is going to be important because this is what's going to help bind some of that marinade and that flavor to your veggies and your chicken dish. And then you're distributing this over multiple portions, so you're not going to be taking in all of this 1/8 cup of honey. So I've reduced it by half because I'm someone who likes subtle sweet. I don't like a lot of sweet. Now, if you like sweet, you can increase that amount to the full amount to 1/4 cup. All right, next, delicious. We're going to use our lovely Dijon mustard, okay? And Dijon is going to have a little bit of, let's see, I'm just double checking. I don't want to misinform. It has 0 carbohydrate. So it's one of those very friendly ingredients. You can go all out on the Dijon mustard. All right, so the recipe calls for a 1/4 cup. I'm going to use that for today. You can add more. And I'm just going to eyeball it. That mustard is really going to be a nice coating, and it's going to help enhance the flavor. Okay, so Dijon mustard has been added. Next, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. So you're going to notice this is a theme between both. It's a combination of soy sauce and Dijon mustard. So 2 tablespoons soy sauce. I'm using up the rest of 1, and then I'm going to open this new one. I'm just checking the notes just to make sure no one's chat box if anyone has questions. So you're going to add in your soy sauce. Now, if you're needing to watch out for your salt, you can use half this amount and use more water in place. Also, if you're going gluten-free, you need to use tamari sauce. This regular soy sauce has wheat in it, so go for the tamari. It's still good. It tastes just like soy sauce, but it doesn't have the wheat in it. All right, in its manufacturing. Next, so we got through that. We're going to add in some minced garlic. Okay, I'm going to finish chopping this up. I was doing this earlier. Give me just a few seconds. We're going to add in some minced garlic. Okay, knife skills. So see this? Grab here like it's almost like a handshake, right? This way you have more control. If you do it here with the handle, you're gonna wobble in your wrist, and a lot of that energy that you use for your knife is not going to go for your final target, right, of chopping things. It's gonna wobble. So we wanna pinch at the base, and then fingers go underneath, so that way you use our arm more effectively. Okay, so I put my hand at the top here, and then I just go through, and that makes mincing garlic very, very quickly. I'm almost as good as one of those manual choppers. You know what I mean? Where you just push the handle down and it chops it for you. All right, so we got some minced garlic. We're gonna add that on. That's about 2 cloves. Next, we want to add in, so it says to use rosemary and thyme as a garnish. I absolutely disagree. I think it actually needs to be a main note in our marinade. I'm like, if you're buying all these different herbs, or if you're growing these, this is like one of the best things you can add to any dish is some delightful, delightful herbs. So I'm just going to pinch off some rosemary, and I'm just going to add that in. You can chop it finely if you want. I think it just adds in this wonderful, wonderful herbal complexity to the marinade. Okay, so rosemary went in, and then you have thyme sprigs, okay? And I'm just gonna, see how I just kind of pull and I get all that off and just sprinkle that in. So that makes it really artist, and you herbs as much as you want. So you can add other herbs like dill or oregano, anything that you really like in particular. And if you're someone who hasn't really experimented much with herbs in your cooking, herbal cooking, feel free to, like, you know, go out on a limb. You see these at H-E-B, Whole Foods. They usually come in their little package. Or if you are someone who grows herbs, take advantage of those from the garden. There's nothing better than fresh herbs. Okay, we're gonna mix this around until it's well mixed. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like for our marinade. Now I'm going to use part of this on the veggies here. And actually, I'm going to use a smaller bowl to mix that. That way you can see better. Okay, top-down view. So we got our veggie mixture, and the Dijon's not going to mix as thoroughly as you want. You can add a little bit of water, and that will thin it out a little bit. Okay, so we're just going to drizzle that on. Okay. You can, oh wait, actually I'm going to pour all of it. I'll make more for the chicken. And we're going to toss that. And I'm doing this one-handed. You would usually use 2 spoons or forks and just mix that in. Yeah, that's fine. Let's add the other veggies. That'll do. Bigger bowl. Okay, I added in the spring onions because they are absolutely delicious when they are a little charred. And with this marinade, you're going to be loving it. You can add whatever veggies you like. You can even go out on a limb and add some portobello mushrooms. Those would be really good if you are someone who likes mushrooms. All right. So first one is going to be our veggie sheet. So here I got the veggies, and you're just going to put those out. So I'm going to put those intermittently. And I would use a spoon, but I'm doing this one-handed. Okay. Now, if you are, so you can add olive oil to this if you're doing 100% vegetarian option, okay? You can add that in and toss it around. I'm gonna try without. Vegetarians, at the 20-minute mark, you're going to need to check on this. It might be done then, and that's great. If it's starting to char earlier than that, you need to put the aluminum foil on, okay? So that's our veggie dish. And then I'm gonna put the rest for the chicken. So I'm just gonna dump that out. Now I'm making this in bulk. This is a great recipe to do if you're meal prepping. Kelly, yes, herbs de Provence would be excellent on this. I would totally add like 1 tablespoon of herb de Provence. That would be excellent. Herb de Provence has a little bit of lavender in it, which really is delightful. Okay, so for the chicken dish, we're going to put those out, and we're going to put the chicken intermittently. And that fat, as it cooks, is going to help keep this moist. Okay, so I'm putting these aside. We're going to get the chicken ready. So the vegetarian one goes on top. Okay, bear with me while I get the chicken. So for your chicken, you typically, okay, so for this dish, you have the option of leaving the skin on or taking it off. So vegetarians, sorry, you're going to be seeing some meat. You need to, okay, so the healthier choice option would actually be to take the skin off, and you can cut this or peel it off with your hands. That would be if you're looking to reduce the amount of calories in your diet. Okay, now if this is like a weekend or you're like or you're happy with where you're at with your health, then you can leave that on and it will enhance the flavor. Remember, fat is a conduit for flavor. You would get as much of this, the fatty outer skin off. Okay. So I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna leave these two others on, and we're gonna simply put that on top of our dish, and then we're gonna put more marinade on it. So give me a second, I'm gonna switch out the baking sheet. And this would be great to do, like let's say you're going in to work, like it's a Sunday, you're going into work on Monday, right? You could do this like Sunday during the day and do a mass amount of these. So that way you have chicken and a nice dinner or lunch already pre-made in the fridge that you can just heat up. Okay. We're going to make more marinades. And sorry, one of our instructors is having an issue. Let me just make sure that she contacts my other employee. It's a Zoom issue. So sorry. All right. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a little bit of honey. This is for the chicken. So you would do twice the amount of the marinade, right? And we're going to do those soy sauce, Dijon mustard, and you know what, Kelly? I'm going to do what you did. I'm going to do some herbs de Provence. That was an excellent idea. I'm going to sprinkle some of that in. Okay. So we got those. And then let me double check that I didn't miss anything. Oh, yes, garlic. And lastly, anything else? All right, mix that in. This is with the herbs de Provence. And then you can spoon this or brush it onto the chicken. Now, for your skinless chicken, you may want to put a little bit of olive oil into your marinade to keep it moist. Otherwise, it may not be as, it might turn out dry. So I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil into that for the skinless one. And you want to get that marinade all over. Now, cooking times. The instructions say 40 minutes. If you are living in Houston with our humidity and high pressure, it may actually be a lot less time in your oven. So you're going to need to eyeball it. I would check it at the 20-minute mark, especially if you're doing a vegetarian only option. Check it at the 20-minute mark and make sure it's probably, the vegetarian option will probably be done. And if you start to see char, you're going to put the foil on. Okay, so here I have the marinated chicken with the veg. And here I have the veggie only option. Okay, so I'm going to put the veggie only option on top. So that way any vegetarians in the family don't get any of the chicken. All right, so chicken goes in. Set your timer. I'm going to start it off at 20 minutes and do a check-in at 20 minutes. All right, we're going to move to the tofu. So you're going to need to heat up a skillet to medium heat, okay? And then we're going to add some olive oil into the skillet. It's about 2 tablespoons. A little bit more. And you want to make sure that's nice and coated. You can use cooking spray if you like. All right, I'm gonna let that come to temperature and let's go over the tofu steak. All right, so here we have, I'm making 4 different tofu steaks and I cut them about 3/4 of an inch thick, okay, 1 centimeter. And that's how long they are, okay? When we cut these, after we bread them, after they're done, we would cut more at a diagonal, all right? We're gonna make our marinade, and when we make our marinade, it needs to be in bowls that are wide enough to have the tofu in it, okay? So that way you can dip in the marinade and then dip in the breadcrumbs, okay? One is going to be your breadcrumb bowl. Okay, I'm using panko breadcrumbs. This has gluten in it. So if you're going, I can get in the camera angle. If you're going with gluten-free breadcrumbs, you can find these at places like Trader Joe's. Or if you don't have a Trader Joe's nearby, one of the solutions may be using the, I believe they're called rice checks. It's like a cereal. Crumble those up and use those in place. I believe they are gluten-free. Okay, one thing about cooking with breadcrumbs. We are in the Houston area, if you're watching this. It's going to cook a lot faster than what the instructions say. The instructions are like anywhere between 3 to 6 minutes or more. I would stay 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes on one side, flip it over. Otherwise, you will burn your tofu and your breadcrumbs, okay? All right, so marinade time. For the marinade, we have garlic. I'm going to use the rest of this garlic that was here, and I'm going to chop some more. Okay, garlic skills. So you got your bulb, right? You peel out a bulb. I'm going to add 2 more. Okay, rather than wasting time for the paper, right? Turn your knife sideways, like so. Put it on the bulb. Make sure it's not going to slide, and smash. Okay, it cracks it, And then the paper is really easy to peel off. Also, what that smashing is going to do is it unlocks a lot of that flavor, all the oil, the essential oils that are contained in that garlic. And it's gonna, it even feels really moist after smashing it. So you're gonna get a lot better quality flavor by doing that. All right, so chop off your tips. I'm gonna smash the other one. And it's kind of fun, just smashing. All right. Once again, knife skills. Pinch at the top, okay? And you're gonna start off just slicing it, and then we will go into the mincing. Generally, if you see green like that, you would typically want to remove it. But due to time, I'm just going to, it's going to add just a little bitter note. If you don't mind it, which I don't mind, you're fine. But some people like to remove that center part. That's because the garlic's probably, it's alive. Doesn't mean it's bad. All right, you're going to add, so back to the bowl, we're going to add in minced garlic. I could probably mince it a little bit more, but it'll be fine for the recipe. All right, 2 tablespoons of tomato puree. I'm going to eyeball this. I would actually recommend the one that comes in a tube because you can save it more easily. But the canned stuff is cheaper, and just put some saran wrap over it. So 2 tablespoons tomato paste. And that's going to add in some acid, and it's also going to help with the flavor, right? And also help the breadcrumbs stick. Okay, 1 tablespoon Dijon mustard. So we're using that same Dijon. I'm going to eyeball this. You can add more if you want. Okay, I love that Dijon, so good. Next, maple syrup. This is another, so in the chicken we used honey. We're going to use maple syrup. Maple syrup is just a little bit more subtle. And this is 100% real maple syrup. You want to use that in your cooking, ideally. You don't want to use the one that's mostly high fructose corn syrup, okay? That's going to be ultra sweet. We want more of that natural occurring sweetness. Okay, soy sauce. We're putting soy sauce on soy, but it's going to add in some of that salt to enhance. So here's our salt. And you're going to need a tablespoon of water, and that's to help cut the tomato paste and allow it to be more easily mixed. Let me get some water. Okay, so we got our panko. We already have our oil heating up. We need to mix this. So I'm going to get a different spoon, and I'm going to mix that together. And you want to get this to be very finely mixed. And you know that mustard is not going to want to mix very easily, so you keep mixing. It's going to come together. All right, so this is what I got. It looks like a sauce. So there's our marinade. We have our breadcrumbs, and remember, we're using a wide base bowl. I'm going to put the breaded tofu on here. I'm going to wipe this off so I don't have any like veggie. Just a reminder, you need to be checking your chicken and veggies. If you have an oven light, put that on so that way you can just peek through the glass and check it, because we don't want it to be too burnt. I'm going to do a quick check. Oh, so far so good. Still really early on. Okay, let me check the camera angle. Put this back. I want you to be able to see the breading. There we go. All right, so you are going to dip your tofu steak into the marinade, and you want to get it nice and coated. See that? So nice and coated. Make sure you see as little bit of the white area as possible. And then you're going to dip it into your breadcrumbs and get it nice and covered with those delicious breadcrumbs. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but that's what it looks like. And I'm just going to put this right here on the cutting board so I can put them all in at once. So you're going to do that with each tofu steak that you have. And actually, this is when I was doing the trial earlier. This dish is really good. If you even if you're not vegetarian, I highly encourage it. It's just so flavorful, so good. Okay, so you bread that. And once again, it does not have to be perfect. It can be a little messy, and no one's going to judge you. What's most important is the flavor and your happiness with it. And it's also fun to get your hands a little dirty, right? With your cooking. Okay, so bread that. Okay, I got my, whatever's residual you can sprinkle on, and maybe it'll stick. So that way we waste very little. Okay, I'm going to move this camera over to the cooking area because I'm going to need both hands. So you're going to be watching a stove there temporarily. Let me rinse my hands. You need a spatula. So, you want to be gentle with this. You don't want to use a tong, okay? So the oil's nice and hot, okay? And I know this is going to seem, okay. So what I recommend is actually hold this up first, tilt it down a little bit, then add in your tofu. I'm going to bring it over. And make sure your hands are dry. You don't want to get any water in that hot oil. Okay, so I'm going to tilt the oil down a little bit. Let's see if you can see that on the, yeah. And then you're going to add these on. And then you bring it back to center and just let those cook. Okay, so it's going to be 2 to 3 minutes on one side, and then you want to check it and flip it. So while this is cooking, you can have you could get your barbecue sauce ready in like a dipping sauce of some sort, whichever you want to use. And the sky's the limit with this. So different ideas for the marinade. You could add just a little bit of lemon juice to enhance the acidity. You could also add pepper. You could add a lot of different things to this to enhance the flavor even more. Now, when you flip these, you want to be gentle. I would say the first time I did this, about half of the time, I lost some breadcrumbs. So be gentle, take your time. I'm going to add a little bit more oil. Okay, so the flavor is starting to unlock. I can smell it. Smells delightful. Okay, I'm actually going to flip it now. I actually think these are going to be a little cooked. Yep, see what I said? Took some off. There you go. Remember, we're not going for perfection. We're going for fun. That one doesn't want to flip. So on one of them, I lost the breadcrumb coating. It's still going to be really delicious, but the others seem fine. And these cook fast, very, very fast if you're in the Houston area, just because we have high pressure. If you are in an area where there's like higher terrain, it's probably going to take a little bit longer. So keep in mind your geographical location. Let's see. When I use, instead, I don't have Dijon. Okay, so if you don't have Dijon mustard, let's see, what are some other options? You could go with the regular mustard, but it's going to have a lot of punch. So I would probably cut it with something else. So you could cut it with, let's see, what would be some good options? You could add a little bit more oil, right? So that way it enhances the flavor and it kind of distributes that mustardy goodness. You could also put like a little bit of vinegar in with that oil, and that will kind of help thicken it. Apple cider vinegar, yes. Thank you for that, Amber. Apple cider vinegar will be great. Okay, that's done, I believe. Let's check it out. Yep, these are done. See how fast that goes? Okay, I'm just going to put them back on the cutting board because we are going to slice these here in a moment. See, that's the one that I lost some of the delicious panko. All right. We're going to do a check-in with the oven. Let me rinse my hands and set that over. All right, let's do our check-in. Okay, see what I'm talking about with the veggies? The veggies are actually done. I'm going to take those out. The chicken, see how the, I don't know if you can see it, but the liquid has come off the chicken, right? It still looks fine. And see how the veggies, they're starting to char a little bit. I'm probably going to let it go a few more minutes, but I'm going to take the top rack out for the vegetarian option. Vegetarians, your food's typically going to cook a little bit faster because it doesn't have as much fat content to keep things moist. Oh, it smells so good. Okay. So this is what we got. We got so you got the char and the Brussels sprouts, right? Even though these look like they have just been dehydrated, they actually taste really, really good. So here we go. So this is our veggie option, and I'm going to go ahead and do the display of the veggie option while we're waiting on the chicken. Okay, so give me 1 second to get the plate ready. Okay, I'm gonna move this back over. And y'all are gonna come with me. There we go. I'm gonna make sure I didn't miss any questions. Okay. Oh, if you don't have any kind of mustard. Okay, so you could coat it with a barbecue sauce. That might be an option. I don't know. I actually really, I'm just going to say this. I really like A1, even though it has some corn syrup in it. You can substitute that A1 and see how it's going to be very barbecue sauce like, and it's vegan. I did not realize it was vegan. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, so we got our veggies. Put those on a plate. And this is a great way. You can experiment with your different types of vegetables that you like. You don't have to do butternut squash. You can instead do, let me set the timer. You could do acorn squash as well. It's going to have a little bit different flavor. Okay, and actually I can load up even more on the veg. So in our plate, half of it typically should be veg, some type of veggie dish. That's good. You can use acorn squash. Now with spaghetti squash, you could do a spaghetti squash, but I'd actually probably do it separately because it's stringy, right? So that way you can string it and put those on the sides. You could do this with your typical summer squashes, your zucchini or your yellow squash. You could cut them into slivers or coins and use that. All right, let's cut our tofu steak. So for the tofu steak, you need to have a very, very sharp knife. Otherwise, all your breadcrumbs are going to come off. Let's see. Salad dressing. Kelly says, salad dressing like a honey mustard or anything creamy might work. Absolutely. That would be really good if you don't have mustard. Good, good, good info. Okay. So I'm just going to cut this one. Okay. So just want to show you, you have that delicious breaded outside, there we go, with that nice tender middle. So my dipping sauce is going to be A1 because I've been talking about it. And I like A1. You can use whatever sauce you like. Arrange these. Okay, A1 sauce is coming. All right, let's check it out. I'm going to move the camera so you can see. So from a side view, we got our veg, which is making about half of our entire plate. We have the tofu steak, and it's breaded. It's nice and hot still. And then whatever barbecue sauce of your choice. I used A1 just because it's here. You can use any combination. So this is an excellent meal. You got high quality fiber, and if the more veggies types you have, the more nutrients you're going to get. And this is great going into the fall because a lot of these are becoming available. You could use celery, you could use mushrooms, you could use those small potatoes, you could cut them in half. So your tofu is going to be available year round. Okay, and enjoy that for the vegetarians. So we're going to wait a little bit longer for the chicken. I'm going to check. So I'm going to set this aside. And actually, in the test try, this was so good. So if you made that tonight, oh, please send me photos. It was so much fun. It's so delicious to taste. Let's do a check-in. So this will be at 25 minutes here shortly. So see how that's, I want to go the full 30 minutes at least. I'm going to set that. I'm going to flip the camera back around so we can just chat while we're waiting on the chicken. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Woo! There we go. So we got the full time. So any questions about the tofu dish thus far, or the veggies or the chicken dish? Everyone doing okay? And thank you, Kelly, for that. Yeah, any salad dressing would work to help coat if you don't have mustard. You can get creative with your tofu coatings too. So things to add into the breadcrumbs. So you could add, definitely a little bit of pepper. Oh, Alyssa asked, really surprised by the cooking time differences. Just moved here from LA. That's very good to know. Yes. So even though LA is right there by, I used to live in Orange County. So even though LA is right there by the coast, it goes up in the mountains really quickly, right? So, and it's drier. You don't have as much humidity. Houston just has this crushing pressure. And so things ferment faster here and things cook faster here than in other locations. So for instance, if you make like sourdough bread, you're gonna have a lot more rapid fermentation and potential stickiness as well. Yep. So a few more minutes. Whew. I'm excited. Anyone make the tofu steak yet or following along? I'm just curious. Let me know if you liked the flavor. So we have about 8 more minutes to go on the chicken. Now the chicken, if it's starting to char, right, and you don't like char, then put a sheet of foil over everything. So that way it keeps cooking, but it reduces the amount of potential burning. A few more. Any questions? Okay, let's talk about what's going to come up for the next cooking demo. So we have the tabbouleh, upgraded tabbouleh salad with, so it has garbanzo beans and feta if you want to use that. So tabbouleh, we're doing a Lebanese style one. It's a mint salad. And you're going to see different options for your mint. I like to use a common, not mint, parsley. It does have mint in it, but parsley, excuse me. So I like to use both Italian and regular curly parsley, right? So we're gonna, in the demo that I'm gonna do next week, I'm gonna use both of those. You can use all of one or the other, or use a combination like me. Also mint really enhances the flavor. And so we're gonna chop those really finely. We're gonna put in some veggies. We're gonna add in some garbanzo beans for that nice protein source. And we'll have the option of using feta, so that Greek style cheese. Now with as I dropped something, with the tabbouleh, you can use bulgur wheat. So if you eat gluten, the bulgur wheat could be a great option, and I'm using this whole bulgur wheat. We'll talk about how to cook that. If you are gluten-free, I'm going to do a demonstration. So I'm going to divvy up the salad, and we're going to do different options. So I'm probably going to demo with a quinoa. So remember how I make quinoa? cook your quinoa in some type of broth. Okay, if you're vegetarian, it'd be like a veggie stock broth of some sort. Okay, if you are an omnivore, then you're going to cook that quinoa in like a chicken stock chicken broth, something that has a little bit of more complexity to help enhance that quinoa. So I will add that into the salad demo. And also, if you use quinoa, you're going to enhance the nutrient profile even more and add a little bit more protein into your salad than if you just use bulgur wheat by itself. So something to think about. All right, bulgur wheat's really cool. It's really easy to cook if you haven't cooked it before, and it'll be interesting to try. So we have about 5 more minutes on the chicken. I'm gonna do a quick check-in. Okay, so my chicken's starting to char quite a bit. I'm gonna move the camera. Okay, Amber, thank you. This is fun, informative. Yes. You got some amaranth and quinoa. So okay, let me look up through the comments real fast. Kelly Ward, my vegetarian daughter would not be happy with me if I made the tofu while she was away at graduate school, but it will definitely make it when she visits. Yes, she would definitely appreciate that. And it's so good. It is so good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then thank you, Amber. And see, Kelly said, okay, got some amaranth and quinoa mixture for next week. Yes. So you can cook amaranth and quinoa together. For those of you who don't know what amaranth is, it's a cousin to quinoa. They're both really high in protein. Yes, you can cook those for next week and use those in place of bulgur wheat. It actually will raise the protein content in the salad too. So if you're someone who is struggling with a metabolic condition, quinoa may be a really good choice for you because it's lower on that glycemic index. Even though if you're using whole wheat bulgur wheat, it's still going to be low on that glycemic index, right? But that quinoa is even lower, and it's not going to raise your blood glucose very much in relation to other types of carbohydrates. So I'm going to put the foil sheet over, but I want to show you what the chicken looks like so far in my oven. Okay, see how it's starting to char? I want to put a sheet of foil over it, so give me 1 second. Oh, I didn't flip the camera around. My apologies. Flip. Let's do that again. Start video. All right. There, now you can see it. See how it's starting to char a little bit? Okay. Oven. Oil. And we'll leave it there for the remainder of the time. Let's see, any other questions so far? We're almost there. I'm going to get the plate ready for viewing. And I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to switch you'll talk to me this way for the time being. Kelly, what I like about amaranth and quinoa mixed together, it's just delightful. And the color differences, you know, we always think we eat only with our mouth and you know, the sense of smell, right? But vision, that visual input is so important for the eating experience. And that quinoa, the amaranth, especially if you're using one of the different color grain quinoas, it's just beautiful, and you just want to bite into it. It looks really good. So we got about, on my clock, I have about 2 more minutes. I'm really excited about this dish, having this tonight, and then also having some delightful chicken. we got about a minute and a half to go. I'm gonna go ahead and switch the camera for the viewing, and then we will be done. It's almost out of the oven. Might as well do it now, right? Because that camera switching is, Zoom just doesn't want to work today. Okay, I'm gonna clean this area up for the viewing. We got about 44 more seconds, and then I'm gonna pull it out of the oven. Baking sheet's gonna go right here, and I'm gonna transfer all of that delicious goodness onto the plate. Almost there. All right, let's give it a look. So this is what our chicken looked like. And we have all those delightful veggies all on it. Let's do a viewing. So this is the one that was skinless. Let me see if I can grab it. Okay, so that's what the skinless one looks like. Okay, and then the ones that retain the skin. Okay, so a little bit moisture, right? So that we wanted to really make sure that we add that olive oil. So I'm going to do a viewing with the one with the skin on. And then this is our veggies on the side. You want to load up on those veggies. All right. So here we have our veggie dish with some delightful chicken. All righty. So I'm going to flip the screen around and let's, any last questions about the chicken or anything else? I think.
Thank you, Alex. That was great.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here. So, all right. Any questions before we go? Thanks. Bye, Lisa. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. I'll stay on for a few more. Oh, yes. Oh, that looks
That's
delightful. Oh, excellent. Oh, and you added okra. Oh, that's so good.
Yes. And this, I didn't use the
breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I just used the oven. I didn't use the breadcrumb since I don't have it, so I just did it this way.
Oh, let me know how it tastes. I bet it's still going to be really delightful.
Yeah.
Really
thank you so much.
Thank you for showing. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you, Matthew. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Gianni. How to tell if the chicken is cooked. Okay, go ahead and with your chicken, cut in towards the bone. It should be, for the dark meat, you shouldn't see any red. It should be moist, maybe just a little red near the bone, just because that's where, there was a lot of blood flow in the chicken, right? But it should be sufficiently cooked through, like a brown color, not red. Yep. Thank you. Very easy. Yep. Very easy to follow along, and thank you so much. Yes. So we do save the recordings, and if you want, it's going to be uploaded to the Recreation Center's YouTube channel, and then I can share that with you, Kim. I know you were coming in and out. I guess maybe internet connections, but I will upload this, and you'll have that available, so you can try it in the future. Yep. Any other questions? All right. I'll stay on a few more seconds and then bon appetit. Oh, one more thing. If you're going to pair this with a wine or beverage, the chicken, I would recommend maybe, because it has a lot of herbs with it, and I would go with like a nice refreshing white, maybe like a medium body Sauvignon Blanc. For the tofu, actually, because it kind of has a little bit more barbecue-esque flavor, you might even go out on a limb to have like a low to medium body, very flavorful red, or have a beer with it if you're wanting to go for a good pairing. That dish, to me that just calls for a nice, refreshing beer to pair it with. So let's see. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I wish you all a happy week. So next cooking demo is, I believe, next week. So we pushed this one back because of the hurricane closure. So I will see you next week for tabbouleh. Have a wonderful evening. Bye, everyone.